Hello. This is an approximately 10-minute presentation about Specialist Disability Accommodation, or what I like to call it, SDA for short, because I have to say it so often. SDA is a type of funding available from the NDIS for certain people. They're for people who are living with complex disabilities so that they are funded to live in homes that are designed to be highly accessible. My name is Karen Deegan, and at the time of this recording, I was presenting from the lands of the Gadigal people, also known as Surrey Hills. I work with Vera Living, which is a SDA provider, and as an SDA provider, we manage the highly accessible homes and we make sure that the tenants are happy and living their best lives in them. But we're also a business that goes through the property development process of purchasing, designing, and overseeing the construction of these homes. We have created this information resource because we know that the NDIS system can be complicated, let alone applying for this specific type of funding. And we also are really aware that that process of applying for this funding doesn't take into account the context of people experiencing homelessness. But let's start from the beginning. What is SDA? SDA are homes, as I said, which are specially designed for people with, and this is the terminology from the NDIS, people who live with extreme functional impairment or they have very high disability support needs. In these homes, the way that they are designed and allows people who live in them, to live a more independent life. So the design of these homes facilitates the way they move through their day. It also provides an environment for the people who carry out their day-to-day supports to be delivered in a safer, better way. We, as an SDA provider, engage architects to design these homes, and they design them to a design standard that was actually set out by the NDIS. This is an image of an actual SDA home. It's actually one of our homes. And as you can see, it's newly built, as are all of our homes that we own and look after. And what we like to point out is that they don't scream accessible housing. We make sure that with all our consultants that have to come together to bring this to fruition, is they make all of these features as seamless as possible. But even so, even in this one image, there's something like 20 points of design, which makes sure that that person living here um, has high levels of accessibility, but isn't even made aware of it themselves. Here's an image of a typical kitchen in one of our homes, and even here there's many points of accessibility which you might not make, which might not be very obvious. There's also something that not a lot of people know about this type of funding from the NDIA, is that it's not just for people who live with complex physical disabilities, but it's also for people who live with disabilities that would fall more in the boat of what's called psychosocial disabilities. But in essence, to become eligible for that type of specific SDA funding, um, there's a lot to it, but in summary, you would say they were people who have a history of property damage or have a history of harm to themselves or others with property. And so houses are designed to a standard which is called robust SDA, where the house is designed with really resilient materials, the walls, the glass, so that it's not very breakable. And it means that they don't damage the property and they don't damage themselves in the process of that. I also like to bring to people's attention that the SDA funding allows for choice around the type of dwelling. And when I mean type of dwelling, I mean they can live in sort of smaller villas that would sit in sort of quiet backyards. They can live in kind of bigger houses in suburbs. Most of our houses are sitting in new suburbs, so all the amenity around them is usually highly accessible as well. And they can also live in apartments if they're choice is to live in a town centre or very close to a town centre. The benefits of living in SDA, or in particular how our Vera Living SDA, are beyond just the bricks and mortar and the design and accessibility. There's actually another 5 aspects that I like to bring people's mind to, in that location is really important. Where we live obviously has a big impact on our lifestyle, and what we can say is that the properties that Vera Living create are in close proximity to shops and public transport, as well as sports facilities and civic facilities. Um, the affordability we think is pretty amazing in that it's set by the NDIA, and for the moment, at the time of this recording, it was around $196 per week. And in particular, we don't charge any bond and we charge no penalty for breaking the lease. What I also love to offer and make sure everyone knows is that our leases are for up to 25 years. So rolling 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 year leases, so that tenants have the assurance that they can stay there pretty much for as long as they want. But like I said, they can break that lease at any time. And also that the homes and apartments and villas are professionally maintained. Our urgent repairs are no longer than 48 hours, and we have a really regular and strict regime for regular maintenance. One thing that might not be really obvious in terms of a benefit is that we are just the accommodation provider. The supports are provided by a different business, and that business, if they want to change the services, it means they don't have to change the home. So if they want to change those services, they just change that business and stay put, which is quite different to the way it used to be before the NDIA came to life. Where are they, you might be saying? We have them sort of all over Queensland for the moment, in the following suburbs: Pallara, Redland Bay, Rothwell, Coomera, Greenbank, Toowoomba and Newport, but this is changing daily. So I would really say that if you're looking at this at any stage, you would just go to our Vera Living website, which I'll put at the end of this presentation. And we have quite a lot properties that are coming up over the next few years. Is SDA relevant to people experiencing homelessness? Well, this is the reason why we make contact with yourselves, is that we saw the data from the AIHW. Nationally, there were 8.6% of the clients who accessed SHSs lived with a disability, and nearly a third of them claimed that that disability was severe or profound. I mean, this is national data. In particular, this was as granular as I could get the data, but over 900 clients that access SHSs said that they lived with a disability. And even if there was a third of those who said they lived with a severe or profound disability, which is something that would put them in good stead for applying for SDA, that'd be over 300 clients that could be out of this system and living in permanent housing. How do you know if someone's eligible? It's a very complicated set of criteria. The main ones are that it's a permanent disability, and that they're eligible for the NDIS, and that not in other systems. And the other 2 parts to it are either or extreme functional impairment, which an occupational therapist would have to put together evidence for, or that they already have existing high disability support needs. But how do you actually help someone go through the application for funding? There are 4 general main steps. This can take quite a number of months, from step 1, applying to the NDIA, and in particular for this type of funding called SDA. Then you have to go to step 2, which is a collection of evidence from the right types of professionals, either an OT and potentially, for the other type of robust SDA, more like a psychologist, but that's something you would work with the support coordinator for to figure out. In step 3, we're basically saying that there's no existing housing that would be applicable. And step 4, find your SDA provider and move in. But what I wanted to bring your attention to is that I understand you're supporting someone right at the beginning of this journey. We have collaborated with a specialist in SDA applications. They've carried out over 1,000 applications to date. And this tool is just a website. It goes through 22 questions. in plain English. You can start the process and then save it if you need to, but in the end, you end up with a gauge of your eligibility based on all that information from these SDA application specialists have pulled together, as well as taking out all the jargon for people and turning it into simple, plain English as well. We think that this empowers the person to actually go through the eligibility checking process themselves, or you can work with them if you think that's better. Vera Living also has other ways to support yourselves. We have information, we have brochures on our website. You can also just contact us directly if you have any queries. We can also put you in contact with the relevant other professionals that can help with this process. But in essence, reach out and ask and talk to a real person with any query or question, small or complicated. Often these things are so difficult to navigate when you're on websites. So take note, there's our phone number, the email address, which obviously will always be reacted to within 24 hours, the tenants at veraliving.com.au, or go to our website, just if that's easier to remember, www.veraliving.com.au. Thank you.